Welcome to a special edition of today's Judo Pod. I'm here with Thea Cowan.
Oh, hello.
And we are joined in the studio by 1981 world champion and IJF commentator, Neil Adams. Hi, Neil. Thank you very, very much for making the trek down and joining us here.
It's been a pleasure. Yeah, it's same old trip down.
Yeah.
We've done it so often.
Yeah, we've been in this studio. We spent a lot of time together in this studio.
A lot of time.
Shot technical analyses. We've looked at analyzing footage from the world tour, coaching stuff.
Yeah, and I was just saying actually that there I was talking to some of you guys there in the stock room in the back there, and then next week we're going to be in Paris, and then another place 2 weeks later, and it's some life, isn't it? We do a lot of traveling.
A lot of traveling. You're such an authority in the voice of judo, in the world of judo. We are, you are turned to look at footage, to look back at what athletes are doing. Could you ever have imagined becoming one of the authorities in the whole, when you were a young guy, young athlete, that you could have been at this level at this time?
I think that, when you're in competition mode, I was always very directed with my, so I was just looking at the end thing. I wanted to be world champion, and that's what I wanted to do. And so that was all I was interested in at the time. And that's why I think most competitors have that selfish streak, because it's all about them. And it was all about me. It was all about getting to where I wanted to get to, and, to be world champion. And that was my main aim. And so, you kind of relate to people in a different way. When I came to the end of my competition career, then your mindset kind of changes, and you kind of pivot and start to change direction. And then, of course, when you get family and relationships, you change again. It's not all about you. Yeah. It's about other people as well.
Do you think that selfish streak came first? Do you think the competitive career came and then you had to learn the selfish streak? Or do you think the selfish streak came first and it made you into a competitor?
Well, that's a good question. I think that because I was so directed, Nikki, my wife, always says that it's, it works sometimes, to my advantage, because I just see that goal.
Yeah, you've got that tunnel vision.
That tunnel vision, and sometimes that works really well for me. But of course, certain things, you miss what's going on around you.
Yeah.
And so I did realize that when I did my first A Life in Judo, which was the first biography or autobiography. I can never know which one it is, but it was just literally about my competitive judo, when I was a competitor. And I said, because Nicholas Soames, a very dear friend, wrote it for me, an incredible journalist. And he wrote this book, and it reflected my personality, which was really quite, a confident. I see it now with some of your podcasts, some of the athletes that you're having on there. They're so directed and so absolutely concentrated on being number one, winning. It's all about winning.
Yeah, there seems like there's like no other way really to achieve that, right? If you have the distraction, surely that means that you're not going to get to the top. Do you think?
But then what about Teresa Wigner, who spoke?
Yeah.
And she went away and had a family and came back and took another world title. But I don't know, is it different now, being able to manage that because they've got so much support, whereas obviously when you were an athlete, that wasn't there?
I think people are different, and I always say, when I'm doing the commentary, I want to see what they're like when they lose, and I've seen it with Abe, Hifumi, and I'm differentiating the two.
I was going to say which one.
And Abe Hifumi, there's nobody more directed.
Yeah.
When you go into golden score and when push comes to shove, that guy, in the last Tokyo Grand Slam, he was under so much pressure from a brilliant judo man, who won the world title when he wasn't there. And he was under so much pressure, and you would never have thought that his backside would be that far off the ground, because he's brilliant, right? And we always think of him as an attacker and somebody who's got the biggest throws, and he was defending. And what I realized from that match was how good he was at defending. He's a really good defender. He could defend. And also, he's a dig-in athlete, and he digs in, and most of the golden scores, 1 or 2, maybe not, but most of them, he wins. But what I wanted to see was how he was when he lost.
The last time we saw him lose was 2019 World Championship. Well, the last time I remember the footage of him when he lost to Mariama and he had the black eye and he came off and he was pretty devastated.
Devastated,
yeah.
But
yeah.
Still managed.
Yeah, he wasn't disrespectful.
No, he wasn't disrespectful, and I think that was one of the key points. He wasn't disrespectful. He bowed off and he left. With Clarice Agbegnanu, all right, what particularly interests me about her and what makes her so amazing was I remember she lost, before she had the baby, she lost a match. It was the final of a Grand Prix or a Grand Slam. And so there she was with a big smile on her face on the rostrum, all right? And then she was being interviewed, woe is me and, how now what's going to happen like that. She said, I just lost a contest.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's all she said. And I thought, that's amazing. And then she bounced back. She won the world title. And like you said, after a baby.
It is incredible. The other time we obviously saw Hifumi lose was actually more recently in the most recent Worlds when he lost to the Tajik boy, Jebov.
Yes.
And he got counted. And again, we were actually filming him walking off. I was like 2 meters away from him and he was actually pretty collected.
Yeah.
He was pretty, yeah.
Well, and I think that is a really important lesson to learn, and I found it difficult when I lost. And I remember somebody coming up, 1978 British Open, and I went up a weight category and I fought Gilbert in the final, and he caught me with Shimiwaza on the ground, right? And after that match, I remember devastated. I was devastated, right? I was sitting at the side of the mat, didn't handle it well.
Was there anything riding on the British Open more than just the British Open?
No, because I'd gone up a weight category and I was playing with the next weight up.
Was there anything specific about the contest? Maybe the fact that it was Shimiwaza, and obviously that's especially
I'd lost.
Just that you'd lost.
Just that I'd lost and I'd got caught. I was winning the match and then I got caught and I lost it. And I remember Brian Perriman, who was somebody who helped me when I was up in Coventry Judo Club. And he came down to me and he just walked past me, walked up to me first of all. And I was sat down there and I was like, woe is me. And he said, you needed that. And walked off. And I remember I was devastated, right? I was more devastated about that. And that kept going through my mind, and I just
Still going through
my mind now,
But
he wasn't wrong. Yeah, but he wasn't wrong, and he was dead right about it, and actually I did need it. And I said then after that, I'd never get caught on the ground again and never got caught on the ground.
So that was a real kind of like turning
point in my judo career, because then I would say I was probably 70-30% tachiwaza, newaza. And I said, I'm going to bring my newaza up to the standard.
Yeah, and nowadays, one of the main things you're known for is Jujikatami.
Yeah.
That's like Neil Adams' classic is just how,
say that it contributed towards that. I mean, just losing that match in the manner of which it happened, and, such a great man as well. I mean, Gilbert and I, great friends, so, I mean, it couldn't have happened by a better guy.
Does that competitive streak make it out into like things like family board games or like?
He's like, don't talk about that.
Don't talk about that. Actually, my eldest daughter, she's terrible with it. But I
was going to say, which one of the children has inherited your personality?
All inherited.
All of it.
And Nikki's the same as well. So when we're starting there, and they know I'm useless at it. I'm not a good board game player.
Oh no!
Right? But Christmas we were playing a board game.
Not good.
And they were telling me the rules as we were going through it, and then just the way it rolled out, I won.
Oh,
right. And,
congratulations.
And my daughter was going, how's that possible? How's that possible? We won it for you. And I said, well, sometimes, tactically you have
sometimes
to
you
play
win, sometimes you lose. What are you going to do?
Yeah, win some, lose some.
Do you think in terms of like a champion, like kind of mindset, do you think that it's more important to be desperate to win or to be desperate not to lose?
Oh, no. It's much better to be desperate to win.
Yes.
Winning being the key. I can recognize straight away if somebody comes out and they're trying not to lose. Because what happens is, and it comes...
Well, no, I don't quite mean like trying not to lose. I'm meaning more just like the psychological, like, I can't lose. And or do you think that comes into the judo?
I think it comes in.
I think you see
It's
it
like
quite clearly.
Getting on skis and somebody says, when you go down this run here, don't hit the tree.
Yeah,
you hit the tree.
and you hit the tree, right?
Yeah.
And so actually from a coach's perspective, that psychological approach is imperative, that you say the right things at the right time. And if you don't say the right things at the right time, sometimes that wrong information is not a key point. It's not a good thing.
What was your experience in that sense then from coach's side? Were you very, like you said, you were very direct, very focused.
Yeah.
Did you require that from coaches or were you quite solid on your own, do you think?
Well, I think that when I first started coaching, so as young coaches, I see people retire and they come into coaching, right? And I think that they get given the big jobs too early, because I think that always for the young coaches, it's a progression. And before they get hold of the Olympic teams, I think they need to go through a process. I think in France, they do that. They do a 2-year process and they go through they have to do that 2 years before they're put out there. And then they're an assistant to somebody who's experienced. And I think that the new coaches need protection from the older ones, the older ones that are watching from the outside there.
I think the kind of style would bleed down otherwise in terms of...
I just
also
think
hard for them to detach, isn't it? Because I think a lot of them maybe are still in the athlete mindset and
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No,
maybe it's a bit about them and not so much about the athlete.
Well, it's about what they would do.
Yeah.
As opposed to, when you get, and our sport, I mean, there's no teaching process that is absolute. So when you're teaching somebody, some people learn by visual, some people are, have to feel it. And, so there are different ways of putting things across. It's not the same for everybody. So you've got to know the group. That's one thing. Once you know the group, then you can direct what you're doing. And I think that quite often when it comes to selections, and I probably made some really key mistakes when I was selecting, for teams, because I had my own ideas. And I think you're right there, in is that sometimes they are your competitive ideas of how it should be. And sometimes you need a little voice on the outside there saying, maybe you need to redirect that, and I just think that it's something you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
You have to learn
That's
it.
true.
And it's a learning process. And the coaching side of it is a learning process. And I'd like to see a lot of the former athletes that come out in there and just shadowing the experience, or somebody really experienced up there that's not necessarily in the limelight, but directing, and I think that that's, probably what went wrong with me for 96 Olympics, and is that that was the first time that we ever had to qualify, by the way. So we didn't know how to qualify people, right? So it was, a bit of a learning process for all of us. And so on paper, we had probably one of the strongest teams. I think there was 7 or 8 former World Olympic medalists on that team.
Wow. So wait, how did it work for the 92 Olympics and before that then?
92 Olympics. Well, I mean, the 92 Olympics, Ray Stevens almost didn't go to the 92 Olympics because he was injured. All right. And so they took a chance on that, whether, do we take him or do we take one of the others that's fit, but, might not win a medal. Might not. But so they kind of went for it and sent him out there. And actually, I know that his knee was bad because he was my training partner for 2 of the Olympic Games, right? So I knew his knee was shot. And but he went out there and took control of his draw and was very close to winning the Olympic title, So it's, do you take a chance? The Olympic Games is a different event.
So for the 96 Olympics, you there as a coach, were you the type of coach that trained with your athletes? Were you doing all of the nagikomi, all of the uchikomi?
Not all of it. And, I think that you can I watch Ilias.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's the example.
He's your prime example.
The athlete that trains.
And we've just seen him out there and he's training and he can still mix it with the best.
Yeah.
And I had some of the best randori in my life from 31 up to 40 years of age.
And just to be clear, what year did you retire?
I was 31,
yeah.
So I finished. And that kind of period of time, all of a sudden the pressure was off.
Yeah.
All right. So no expectation. We'll talk about expectation in a minute. So no expectation on me, and on a one-off, I could still mix it with the best.
Yeah, but not, you didn't have that
not
same
5 on the trot.
Yeah.
You know, 5 on the trot is what makes the difference between the ones that are champions and the ones that are not.
Because you see people on Instagram and like when they see Ilias training with all, like when he was with the Uzbek team and he'd be going at it just as hard as Bobanov and all the guys, people would be like, oh, this guy could still win a world title. And people who don't understand that the consistency that's required across a day in a judo contest. Yeah, maybe Ilias could in a prize fight, in a one-on-one sort of like UFC style, he could maybe come out and still mix it with the best, but
he is a training.
I mean, he's
a training monster, and I mean that in the nicest possible way, Ilias, right? But and also past 40, things started to kind of fall off a little bit, and bits of me started to ache a little bit more.
Some bits needed extra wrapping.
A little bit of extra wrapping around there, and then you get injured, and then it's more difficult to come back, and then you start to not pick your practices. Yeah, pick your practices. You just take
you've earned the right.
it a bit more easy. Yeah, you do.
What was it like for you? Do you miss it? Do you miss that feel like it doesn't matter? However, whenever you step on the mat, you just go, oh, I want to grab hold of someone.
Well, I was pretty, I wanted to be able to demonstrate at high level. So technically I was keeping myself fairly fit, good condition for my age and able to demonstrate the techniques to a high level. And then Nikki said to me, she said, you need to mix it up a little bit.
Oh.
And so she talked to Isaac, who is my my uki, now my friend, and she said, "Would you do a bit of randori with Neil?" And I said, "No, I don't need that. My age, I don't need it, right?" But he said, "Yeah, no, we'll do it." So actually, him and I went behind closed doors and we started mixing it up and like started off, and I could do 3 lots of 4 minutes, and I was breathing through my backside, and there was no pace there, and it was just unbelievably bad condition-wise. Judo condition, because I hadn't done judo randori for a long time.
Yeah, so you still had all the technical stuff in there, but
different. But I came out, and my face was grazed, my skin was soft, my eye was nearly black like that, and I had blood coming down here, and I went,
best you've ever felt.
I loved it like that. It's totally different, right?
I'm not surprised.
And I went, oh, that was the next one. Like, so
Rush.
Then we were again. And within 2 weeks, I'd built it up. So we were doing 8 lots of 4 minutes.
Wow.
And, and then we were off. And then I got a little bit of an injury. He got an injury. So then he went off. And then we've just come back. And second time in, so just a couple of days ago, I just injured my backside. So I just pulled a little muscle in my backside. So we're on hold for a minute.
But so Nikki's essentially started Fight Club.
She started Fight Club. She did do. And thoroughly enjoying it. And actually, so the answer to your question is, I think we do miss that just a little bit. We're always fighters, and actually when we start to mix it up a little bit, it's just that little bit, something comes out, even at my age, so I thoroughly enjoying it.
That quantity of randori, just can you compare it to how much at your peak, physical peak? How many randoris would you do a day?
Yeah, but no comparison.
Oh, of course, there's no comparison. I'm not trying to. It's interesting just for me to know, like, because I'm technically, in my peak at the moment, and I want to know how far behind am I.
When we went to Japan, I went to Japan. My main aim in Japan was to get 70 quality randoris for the month. So for that month, it was 70 good quality randoris. If I went to Korea, it was slightly different, about 40, because it was different intensity. So intensity
how was
into
the Korean
it was
intensity
harder.
different?
More physical.
What, because of the people you were
physically
fighting?
harder.
Yeah.
Physically, different mentality, different, so every
Because of their
match
style of judo.
was Shiai.
Right.
It was absolute war, and,
That's
and
it.
but in Japan it's different. It's
Which did you prefer?
I love the randori, and just being able to, because, the thing is, in Japan, I felt the danger of being thrown. When I was doing my, say, 40 randoris in the UK, which I was doing to maintain.
Yeah.
So when I did my 40 randoris in the UK, most of them I had control of. So I could control it. Didn't get thrown very often.
Yeah.
When I went to Japan, different, in danger of being thrown. So, what I was talking to you about with Abe, when he was in that final, he's training there all the time, with this level of person that's almost throwing him.
Yeah, it's the old iron sharpens iron.
And then you don't see him out there in that kind of danger very often. Watch that final back. You'll go, what great defense he's got.
In the Tokyo Grand Slam.
Yeah.
Yeah. He had 3 crazy fights at that.
Crazy,
Because he went behind to the Korean. He went down a Wazari.
Yeah.
And he managed to come back with 3 seconds to go. Takeoka fight was one of the best fights of the day, best fights of the tournament.
Yeah.
And then the final.
Absolutely, yeah.
The final was interesting as well because the boy was fighting like Maruyama. And it was like watching Abe Maruyama all over again. And they went to the same uni as Maruyama.
Is that right?
And I heard actually beforehand that Maruyama had gone up to him and been like, right, this is what you need to look out for. Abe's going to do this to you, like he's going to do that. He's going to try and pin you, all that sort of stuff. Funny.
And the danger, of course, is that he was a massive thrower himself.
Yeah.
And he was trying to throw him.
Yeah. He was coming for him.
Off him. Yeah, he came for him. Yeah, big time.
Should we have a look, actually? It'd be quite interesting to get your few thoughts on which fight would you want to watch the most?
Takeoka. Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, that was amazing when he pulled that one out 5 seconds before the end. I mean, that was amazing. But let's have a look at the Takeoka one.
We'll pull it up. So for everyone to know, Takeoka he's still the current world champion, isn't he? Yeah, Budapest will be when he goes to defend his title, hopefully. So he's got the red back patch. Abe Hifumi, gold back patch, current Olympic champion. I mean, it's just crazy.
Well, the interesting thing is, are they going to send 2 in that weight category? Or will they send? Who will they send?
Yeah. So this is the semi-final against Takeoka, Tokyo Grand Slam 2025. So we're looking at the fight now. So Neil, tell us what do you think about all of the exchanges, the kumikata and? Well,
so the nice thing at the moment is that the referees are allowed to let it kind of develop, and with the kumikata, don't penalise all the time. I mean, that was the finishing.
I mean, if you look at the time on there, 8 minutes, 37 seconds. That is incredible.
8:37 into golden score. So that's 14 minutes, almost 13 minutes.
Yeah. And, devastated there. Look, because after all of that, nearly throwing Abe as well, about 5 or 6 times, he manages to pull an Ashiwaza out and he manages to score. And look.
Yeah. What do you think the difference was? So how can a contest go 14 minutes with neither athlete able to throw the other, or almost able but not quite able to throw? What is that 1% difference at the end?
I think belief and,
psychological.
I think, psychological belief.
Because they've both got the body, they've both got the physicality, they've both got the technique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were both climbing off each other's technique, and they were both defending like mad, but mostly it was Abe that was defending. He was on the back foot, I thought.
Yeah, and there were a couple of times he could have got that third Shido. There were a few times.
There were a couple of times,
It was like, is he going to get it? Is he not?
I like it now because the referees are letting it kind of develop and letting it run. And I like that freedom because then you don't have a Shido match.
I mean, from
our point of view, there's a difference between giving a Shido when it's negative judo or when it's like that situation. There was no way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It would have been horrendous.
Every break and play, I was just like, please don't. I know it could be, but please don't go to third.
Yeah.
And I think in the commentary you don't want them to stop. I think I was saying that. I said, I was kind of
want to watch this.
Yeah, because we were enjoying it. And, that kind of thing, when you get 2 Tysons going at it, hell for leather, somebody's going to go.
Yeah.
You know it.
And they were both on it.
In terms of like people who maybe don't know judo so well, seeing someone wave their hands and point, and then, oh wait, why did that person win? Whereas like that is very clear. That can go all over Instagram. That can go all over social media, and people know how the fight ended. And it's exciting. It's dynamic. I do understand that there's obviously fairness. You know, if someone is being completely stopping techniques happening, and then the other person gets tired, it's not fair. It isn't fair. So you do have to find the balance. But I was personally happy with the way that ended.
The hardest thing that I have to commentate is Shido's.
Yeah.
It's the most difficult thing to explain to anybody.
Yeah.
Like you say, if you're explaining it to the non-judoka, we don't have to explain it very much to the non-judoka, remember?
Yeah.
But the odd time we do at Olympic Games and things like that, when we're really on show, then we've got to have it clear. It's got to be clear.
Have you learned any good techniques over the years for how to?
Yeah, I was going to ask, how do you like to deliver it?
Well, you don't bite the hand that feeds you, that's for sure. And I am a judo supporter, and so when they change a rule, I try and look for the positive in any rule to see which way it's going forwards. And if it's not working, then hopefully we change it, and I think that the way it's going at the moment and the way that it's developed, certainly the last 5 big events, it's gone great. And there's more flow. There's more transition into newaza, so we see more time in newaza. And because of that, we're going to see a lot more specialists in newaza. So you could say that, what happened to me back in the 80s there, when I lost that one match and I said, right, okay, this is it now. I'm going to find something. I mean, I was watching Jaskovich, a dear friend of mine, one of the greatest. And I watched him do it, got it a little bit wrong, did my own version, and that's where it came from, and I thought, I'm going to work it, and I worked it.
One of the super positive changes we've seen in the rules recently is that they're now going to start counting newaza attacks alongside tachiwaza attacks in terms of passivity. And what do you think about that?
Well, I pushed for it.
Yep. So you happy?
It was like, happy as a clam.
Well, how can you possibly have a situation where I'm on your back for a minute, all right, and then I get up and then a Shido possibility that followed us down to ground gives me the Shido, and I've just attacked you for a minute and nearly got you 3 times with the Jujigatami. Yeah. So yes, the great step forward. As with anything, it's about interpretation. So they'll have to be a little bit careful. You've got to differentiate what is a good attack and what's a bad attack. And people
not just hanging on.
Yeah, well, I mean, you think of it from a tachiwaza point of view, standing point of view. All right, sometimes it's difficult to know what is a false attack and what is a poor attack. Yeah. All right, that's a real grey area. And you'll have to differentiate between the two in newaza as well. What's the proper attack? Yeah. Somebody who really digs in. And I think that's what we're going to see a lot more of now. We're going to see people really digging in and going for, something that they really want. You look at the good newaza people now, and they're hunters. Villa did, 48 kilograms. Yeah. When she wanted that Sangaku Jimmy, she just went for it, from every angle. And she was a hunter.
She was just so tall. Her legs were so long compared to
and she's just, I mean, her style in general is quite aggressive. So her going down, she was only looking for one thing, and you didn't want to stand in her way of it.
No, exactly. And then look at our specialist now, newaza, unbeaten.
Oh, Kaju, Haruka, 63s.
Yeah. Unbeaten.
Yeah, never lost a fight internationally.
Never lost a fight internationally, right? And what does she do? She hunts it, right? From every position. Every position. So, I mean, if I was a coach coaching against that, I'd say just stand up. Easier said than done. When someone's chasing
when someone's got hold of you.
10 different ways of getting you down into the position, right?
What the athlete fantastic. Who, when I first started coming working on the tour, the one who was just an absolute killer was Kaori Matsumoto. Yeah. And she used to take it even one step further. And I remember speaking to her about it. People would a throw would happen, they'd end up slightly outside the area, and then she would literally just grab them and drag them back into the area and then just dominate and win on. And I remember saying, we pointed out to her, we were like, you kind of pull them back in, and she was like, yes, come.
Yeah. But that's
please, to my snare.
Yeah, just come.
And I think it's the same now with the edge play. All right.
Because that's changed recently.
Well, it's changed because you can go out, come back in.
Yeah.
I've only seen 2 or 3 in the last 5-6 tournaments where they've kind of gravitated towards the edge on purpose to attack at the edge. All right. There's a couple, and I'm not going to name anybody. All right. You know who you are. All right. But
watch out.
Well, what I'm saying is, right, is that you have to fight so hard for the kumakata. All right. That the ones that really want it like that are trying to pull them back into the area to throw them. All right. So
tactically, so now you no longer get the Shido for stepping out.
Well, you can do if you do it purposely.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So what's the tactical play that these unnamed people who we won't name, what are they doing? What are they trying to
feel
force?
The danger? You see that? So they feel the danger. As soon as somebody grips up, you know that there's a danger there. If somebody grips up with you, if Iliadis puts his arm around your back and catches that sleeve there,
I'm running.
Teddy Riner. Well, Teddy Riner so all of the matches that we saw with Teddy Riner, and 2007 or something like that, way back when he first won the world title. Incredible, right? And we were looking at it saying, well, why does he dominate all the heavyweights? Kumakata just catches the sleeve, but he's really good at it. And he dominates it, and he wants to get that arm around the back, and he wants to throw.
People think it's that big right hand, don't they? And it is, obviously is. If that hand comes on, it's probably pretty, But I remember you saying before that the key is actually the sleeve.
Yeah, sleeve is the key because, the hands start every technique off. And it's always the sleeve hands that starts any technique moving. And then the other one follows, right? So actually, and he's so good at that he wouldn't want to go outside and have it mated. He'd want to pull them back in. So actually they'll look out for the ones going out purposely just to do an attack so that if the attack fails, it's mate back to the middle. All right. And you can always tell when a contest like that is going that way because it lasts twice as long. It's twice as many mates, right? So for a referee, that's an easy thing to go, something wrong here, so I think that's time then. Maybe penalise them for it, just going out purposely.
The new Yuko rules as well. I've seen quite a few people on Facebook trying to figure those out and the exact what is Yuko now and but it's such a difficult thing when it's a human body and it's landing and
I've got to say, and before we go on to that, I just say that for me the way the rules have gone now. Interpretation, the way the supervisors and the referees, I've always been on since I was involved with the referees, I've been on their side because they've got the hardest job in the world.
No matter what they do.
All right, so whatever rules they have, sometimes it's not their fault that they have to initiate those rules, right? But now they've got the best set and now you can see that the flow of the contest is so much better. It's better. It's great. And I'd say, and I said, so they asked me at the end of Tokyo, everything great? I said, everything great, except I'm not happy with the bottom part of that Yuko. And I'm still not, all right? So I think there's too many kind of gray areas. And I've heard too many people say, I'm still not sure on that bottom part. I think when the wazari at 90 degrees towards the back, it's wazari, all right? Anything less than a full on the back there, it's a wazari, right? And a smack on the back with impetus is an ippon, right? Anything less up to 90 degrees is a wazari. Anything from there downwards is a yuko, except the bottom part, I still think is a little bit confusing.
If knees or hips land first, it's not a yuko, right?
I just think that if we Travis Stevens, he was saying, I'm still not quite sure.
Yeah.
So if we're saying that, and I'm not quite sure sometimes when it happens, when I'm commentating, and I try and read it, my commentating, I try and just add a little bit of spice. When I make a prediction, I just add a bit of spice. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's not just me being the big I am. I try and add a little bit of spice. And then sometimes if I get it wrong, I'll go, well, I got it wrong. And that was it. And if I get anything wrong, it's the bottom part of that one there. And I think that most referees, I was talking to somebody, I'm not going to name them again, all right, but somebody who was saying when they did their referee seminars that they were saying at the bottom half, better to call it
than not call it. If it's in that grey area.
If it's in that grey area, because 70% of the time you're going to be right.
Go on.
I was going to say, say like in children's judo, like mini-mon competitions or whatever, it's a learning phase and they're in that process. But when it comes to medal deciding matches at a really high level.
Olympic Games, gold medal match.
But will there always be grey area? There'll always be grey area. There'll always be debates. People who want it to be a score will say, oh, it's a score because of this bit, and people who don't want it to be a score, no score.
And I get it. We need something other than golden score. We do.
Interesting. What other options are there?
You're not going to call for flags, are you?
No.
Flags, yeah.
Well, I lost an Olympic gold medal and a world gold medal. I had two hand ties.
Yeah, on flags. On hand ties,
On flags. All right? One of them I thought I won, and one of them I thought I hadn't done enough. All right?
Interesting.
And so, when I reflect back, if you'd have asked me straight after each one, I would have probably said, yes, of course I won.
Yeah.
All right?
All fired up.
On reflection, one of them I didn't, one of them I did. I thought I outplayed it, and one, it was a total surprise. So for the World Championships,
just to be clear, do you like the idea of flags? Do you like the idea of bringing it? No, you don't.
I think if we can decide other than flags, so if you've had a couple of techniques that have, so if I throw you and you do a full somersault, land on your hands and knees, and I throw you again on, and you've managed to turn out, and that's all there is at the end.
Yeah.
It should decide it.
Yeah. Who then makes that decision? How does that decision come about?
Yeah, and I think
it's an audience vote, maybe.
Well, I think at the Olympic Games and the World Championships, I think the experience in the supervisors and the referee commission is vast. Fantastic.
Yeah.
As you get further down the levels, then not quite so sure.
Yeah.
And so British Championships, you can say, well, that's a high level. To the people that are trying to win a British title, that's their high level, right?
Yeah, it is massive.
And, then they got to realize that when they step outside there onto the international circuit, it's a different ballgame.
Yeah.
And, but to them, that's their high level. Little Johnny, right, that comes out there for his first grading, that's his Olympic gold medal match. He doesn't know any different.
To get that level of specificity in the landing of throws to filter down to little Johnny.
It is grassroots refereeing as well, I suppose. You've got a lot of, that's their learning.
Well, this is my point, is that how I always think of the top referees in their seminars in their country teaching the lower level referees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that
should be
level
what they're
there,
taking forward.
All right. Yeah. 70%, chance of getting it right. So I said straight away.
I want it 99.
I said, well, I don't agree with that, right? Yeah. But that's our fault. Actually, if that's all we're talking about now, because I think that it's definitely the right direction.
Yeah,
more freedom.
Judo's so exciting at the
more
moment.
More newaza.
Yeah.
Great hip-on throws. Yeah. Great newaza exchanges, even off the back, letting it go, letting it develop, outside, inside, brilliant.
Yeah, because what at the end of the day, what are we trying to achieve here? We're trying to make a fair but primarily an exciting sport to watch for people to. We want people to be excited by judo. So I feel like, that if you're traveling in that direction, I'm sure there's some left and right turns. And to me, that's the thing that's most important.
But with the newaza, is that not going to just encourage more people to go down and maybe not have so many big throws and
turn into?
But will it also encourage maybe the nations who aren't so, well known for the newaza? Is it going to encourage them to pick it up more? Like when we have mixed teams, it's encouraged countries that didn't have strong women's teams. Now we've got strong females. Yeah. Is it going to encourage a wider?
What it will encourage is newaza specialists. One of the best newaza specialists I ever saw, who was a great thrower as well, was the great Kashiwazaki sensei, right? And I'm telling you, he was as close. You know when people talk about in different martial arts and they talk about these Zen masters and stuff. I don't know of many Zen masters, but if anybody was going to be one, he'd be one, right? Because he's just got something, a very, very special skill. His transition. I watched that man from every standing position drop into where he wanted to be. So I was watching him, and every time he landed at the front, not the back. So when we got together, when he came to the Budokai to teach, so he said, Adam said, please, we do the Jujigatami for me. So we did Jujigatami from behind like that. And he was a little bit off balance behind, but you see him when he starts, wherever he throws from, he'll land at the front for Obatori Geishi, similar to what the Japanese are doing, right? All of Keiju and they're all of them doing the Obatori Geishi off the belt underneath, all right? And that's him. That's his influence. And it's where he wanted to be. So he found every which way to get into that position, all right? And for me, I got that off him. I thought, oh, that's great. So I'd never worked from the front. So that was foreign to me.
Just for people who don't know, Kashiwazaki, can you do a quick summary, his titles, how you met him?
World champion. Mm-hmm. So he was world silver medalist, Kashiwazaki, when he was 28 years of age. World silver medalist against Minami of Japan. Two people could fight in the same weight category at that time.
What year?
That was in 1975. All right? 1975. And then he went off and he was so angry about losing that match. And so then at 31 years of age, he was out in the team again, 1981 World Championships. And then he wins in the final eight. So he won the World Championships same time I did, under 65 kilograms. And he does this amazing Kochigari. And when he lands, the Romanian that he was fighting does this full somersault, lands on his hands and knees, and he's in position. And he never lets him go. He's on him like a leech. And he just couldn't get out, honestly. And the man's genius. Yeah.
So you learned a lot from him?
Not only from the techniques that he did, but also the kind of guy he was as well. If you see him demonstrate, it's crisp, it's precise. I think he's 73, 74 years of age now. And he still demonstrate very precise.
So yeah, he won the world title the same year as you, but he was just that little bit.
Yeah,
he'd been around. So was he one of your sort of? Did you have heroes when you were competing?
Yeah, I did do. I looked up to Fuji, who was 4-time world champion. He was a 4-time world champion. Remember that our world championships were then every other year.
Yeah.
So that's super impressive.
And he missed one because in 1977, we didn't have a world championships. It was cancelled because of a political reason. So what he did, he won the world title from 1971, 73, 75, 77. And 79.
Yeah.
He came back in 79 and won it.
Wow.
That's a long period to be.
10 years of being world champion.
12, almost 12 because he was there before as well. And he never went to the Olympic Games because he lost the Olympic trials in Japan.
Back when,
and in 2 different occasions, the person that went instead of him became Olympic champion.
And the Olympic selection.
I know, and I was going to say this is probably a good time to discuss the expectations aspect because we're going to talk about Maruyama as well.
Yeah.
So, what's your sort of view on this? Because obviously you can only take one person for the Olympic
per weight category
per nation,
and
it means the number 2 doesn't often the second best person in the weight category doesn't
sometimes
go to the
in
Olympic
the world.
Games.
Yeah. Well, we see that so often, don't we, with the Japanese, and of course we get a lot of different nations now that are coming through with people that are winning world titles, Olympic titles, and when it comes to overall depth, we still see, don't we, that the Japanese, look at what happened at Tokyo, 66 kilograms, they had 4, and I think 3 different categories, they had 4 there, top 4.
Yeah, gold, silver, bronze.
Gold, silver, bronze,
The 4 athletes returned, 4 Japanese athletes returned, 2 at Grand Slam, ended up on the podium.
And that is amazing depth. And Mariama wasn't even in it.
Yeah.
Mariama's just retired.
Yeah.
And you're on about Mariama. You know, Mariama, I remember seeing an interview with him, and they asked him what was the most difficult thing for him for competition, you know, when he was in competition. I think if you asked Abe as well, either one of them, and I'm talking about Abe Uta and Abe Ifumi, all right, what is the most difficult thing? It's expectation, you know, and Mariama said it was expectation. And this is a good time for me to just say that my book has just been republished, which is a Game of Throws, and it's been beefed up, and we added a couple of chapters, and one is a belief and expectations, which kind of brings us into the Mariama situation. And, you know, it's not just personal expectation, but
Shall we have a little look at the book as well?
Yeah. Yes, and it's slightly beefed up, like I say. We wrote it, about 5 years ago, and it's been beefed up, brought up to date. It's got more of my, you know, my family in it, my grandchildren, and Nikki rewrote some of the chapters and directed them as to the feeling that we have, you know, now. Which is just slightly different. I mean, the belief and expectations there is all about the 3 Olympic Games that I did as a competitor, and the 3 different approaches that I had towards those Olympic Games.
Yeah.
You know, the first one where I was single, I was free, I was, you know, directed and selfish. The second one, I had a 5-year-old 84, sorry, slightly different, but I was in a relationship, right? So I was ready to be married, right? Yeah. And so things were changing in my life personally. And of course, the third one where I've got a 5-year-old son, having to leave him, and how that training was different, how that the difference that made impacted on my results, you know, and also my preparation for that event as well. So actually, expectation is a massive one.
I actually heard a clip from, you did a radio interview recently as well. And one of the things I think it started opening with, and you were like, I won 2 Olympic silvers. I think Nikki was like, oh, I think that might be one of the first times I've heard you say that. Do you think maybe delving into your book and doing this new aspect of it has like helped you see it in a different light, and it's, I don't know, almost putting it to bed?
There's 2 ways of looking at it. So people talk about the Olympic silvers, one split decision and one where I was winning up to the last minute and made a mistake. Now, it could have, should have, would have, but I'm not that kind of person, right? And people who know me know I'm not. You know, credit to Frank Rennick, who took his chance. You know, Ezio got the decision. You know, it was his day and I couldn't catch him up. So you look at that and you go, well, did I lose the gold medals or did I win the silver medals? All right. And so I said, yes, I did win, you know, so I'm not arrogant enough that I say, look, you know, I lost the gold medals. I did lose them. You know what I mean? It was up to me at the end of the day. It was up to me. And I think that looking at it now from a slightly different perspective, you can see that it's still a great result, you know. So if you have a look at I didn't lose a European final, you know, and I had 7 of them. So I never lost a European final. I got 3 bronzes as well, but I lost the Olympic finals, you know, and but I did win them, the silvers.
Yeah. And how would you say that's different for the JB Judo team, obviously back then when the expectations, again, were very high, because it wasn't the same GB Olympic team we have now where you can find medals in numerous sports. What was it like for you then, and the attention you had maybe?
I did, you know, I said in the radio interview, I said, I felt that I'd let my country down. And they jumped all over that. But afterwards I said, but on reflection, you know, I didn't really.
They liked it as a headline.
They loved it and ran with it, you know, but on reflection, you know, it was still a good result. But
that's an incredible result.
And
the result that some people dream of, just to have the Olympic medal and to have two of them as well. What was life like after that, after the world title, in terms of like celebrity, like being suddenly you were in the limelight. You were on television shows. You became a household name. How did that affect your life? Was that fun? Was that a fun period, or was it stressful?
Kind of fun, but stressful as well. And it was kind of fun. You kind of walk. I was kind of recognized outside of judo. Yeah. Now I'm recognized in judo. All right. Yeah. But actually now I'm recognized for my voice. Yeah. So I can be sat next to some of the younger ones now, and they'll go,
"You sound familiar."
You sound familiar. You know what I mean? And they recognize the voice. And it is fun. I can understand, some of these actors, when they can't walk anywhere and they can't be anywhere and they can't, everybody.
Did you have a little bit of that? Did you have stuff where it was
really, not to that degree. It wasn't to that degree, but it was the fun part of it. And then just the odd time when, it comes to parts of your life that you want to keep a little bit private, and then you just think. And
people are private.
Yeah. And then they say, well, you're in the public eye. So why should it be private?
Was either what were some of your favorite shows? You were on Superstars. You did Gladiators. Were there any that were particularly fun?
Competitive shows, of course.
Well. You don't know Crackerjack, right? Crackerjack was a kids program that we did. I had to do some really odd things on television.
Go on.
So, look back, you're like, what on earth?
Well, I had to jump in and out of these shorts, I remember, and how many times I could do it in a minute, and then I got a Crackerjack pen. So as a kid, right, we used to look at the Crackerjack pens, and it was a guy called Leslie Crowther who started this Crackerjack program off. This is way before your time, right? And so I wanted a Crackerjack pen. So I remember doing Crackerjack, and I said to the guy, I am going to get a Crackerjack pen, right? And he said, yeah. And I was really disappointed with this Crackerjack pen. But anyway,
I think it's like us wanting a Blue Peter badge.
Yeah. Blue Peter badge.
Blue Peter
badge. Yeah. And Blue Peter was a funny one because...
There you go. You got that as well.
Yeah, I did 5 different programs for Biddy Baxter, who was the director of Blue Peter. She was getting me set ready for a presenting job. And I didn't realize that she got me in. And so she said, what else can you come on to Blue Peter for? So I went and did something physical, like an exercise program or something else. And so the next thing I got a chance for audition and I had to go in for a live audition. And the live audition was half an hour, and we were going to start at 6:00, and it was as if it was a live program. All right. And 3 10-minute slots. One was a remote control car. One was birdseed cake. And one was, So one was trampolining. So I had the European trampoline champion who's going to take me through my paces, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I started the program off.
I know we do.
And so everything went wrong. Everything that could have gone wrong went wrong, So I started trampoline, and I said to her before we went on, I said, look, listen, I do a bit of trampolining. Get me at the end. Take me through the process, seat drop, front drop, this, that, and the other. Then get me to throw back somersault, and I'll throw back somersault. Anyway, I threw the back somersault, missed the cross you didn't go up, went sideways, landed in the springs like that, So I did, and I kind of said, thank you, thanks very much, like that. And so they went from there, and they were laughing, the camera was going like that. And I was
comedic value.
Comedic value. It hadn't even started, right? So then the next thing was this birdseed cake. And, like on Blue Peter, here's one I've already done. Yeah. So, I put all these ingredients in, I pat it down, this birdseed cake like that, and I start to cut it like that. And then I put it onto a plate. That was what I was meant to do, right? And I'm talking to in Blue Peter speak. Yeah. All right, as they do. And they're going up with their voice. And what we're going to do. So then and the Blue Peter, the cake went... like that, it just went splat like that. It just was so more laughing. The camera's going again like that. So then we went from there to this remote control car, and this remote control car. And what happens is the message comes, it comes into this little box here, and you send it off, and it never came back. All right. So it got caught behind something, a curtain like that, so I had to go and get it. 3 for 3 for 3.
Get me out.
Didn't get the job.
Yeah, I mean, understandable.
That sounds like technical issues.
Yeah, it was.
That's not Neil's fault.
She said, I don't think you're ready.
But what about, say, like the Gladiator one? Because
I wonder if we can find some footage of the Gladiators.
You're going to show me falling off it, aren't you? I know you are. I fell off the travelator. I did.
I love Gladiator
Can you?
Was it a fun experience?
It was great. Yeah. We all had a good time. And
I grew up on Gladiators. That was like I was so hyped to watch Gladiators.
And actually, my son, I think he was about 6 at the time, and he was in there with all the guys, and they were sitting him on the lap. Yeah, everybody behind.
Yeah.
In the changing rooms, they're all great mates. They're all great friends, and they make it look as if they're playing characters.
Yeah.
It's
wonderful,
all
isn't
good
it?
stuff. All good stuff.
Yeah. So that was your foray into sort of like, it's important, those things, right? Because they bring judo to a public. They're like, oh, people who've not seen judo before. Who's this guy? Oh, he's on Gladiators.
I remember we did a celebrity one. We were in the celebrity one, and I remember Vinnie Jones was in ours.
Ah, cool.
And all the rest of us were world champions, boxing, judo.
He's just a hard man.
And Vinnie Jones,
Vinny's just like,
so he's in there playing this part, and the big tough one like that, and it got too heated. Right, he got too heated at one stage. Yeah, it did get too heated, right? And I remember Gary Mason, bless his soul, he's not with us anymore. Gary, he was British heavyweight champion boxing.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've actually got some Vinnie Jones here right now. Just
have we?
Yeah. I think if we can pull that up.
I was going to say, I'm going to be quite entertained by this.
I want to see. Is this the one with Vinnie Jones?
We're probably in there. So you can see these guys are really hamming it up.
Looking at the Gladiators, right?
Do you have to put the character on as well and like give it some big?
Yeah, we did do. We were all pretty determined. These are big guys. They're they're not fighters, and we're not going to just start ripping into Jujigatami with them.
There we go.
Yeah, this was kind of a murder ball. I think we had to get the ball into certain baskets.
Oh yeah, they're big guys, but I guess actually that's not. Do you remember this? Do you remember this moment?
Yeah.
What, did you, out of interest, what's the pressure level here versus
it
a
is,
judo
because the
tournament?
crowd are there, the crowd are going absolutely mad. And so we had to get every ball we got in.
What a throwback.
We got a point. Brilliant. We had to stick the ball into the net. And every ball was a point. And I think I did quite well there. I think I was either first or second.
They're big lads, but they don't have the athleticism, perhaps.
No, and they're not to any level of athleticism, and but they're big guys, and they were nice guys as well. We had a lot of fun doing it. And
what was the story you were telling about Vinnie Jones? I want to know about the
Vinnie Jones. Well, it got a little bit heated, and Gary Mason in the end, he said, "You know what?" He said, "If you want fight," he said, "we go out back."
Really?
Yes, he did. And then he went, "Oh no,
no, you're all right, thank you."
I don't want to do it. Because he had the biggest hands, the biggest fists I've ever seen in my life. Gary Mason, and
he's like, no, it's good.
Because we're all, the thing is that we are fighters, but we were all of us finished or not competing anymore, and just that edge gone. So we didn't want to fight the world.
Just love competing, don't you?
Yeah.
You just love it. Just makes you feel alive.
Asking, you said you miss it. You do. You miss that. Because it's like, so my eldest daughter, her boyfriend, he did a boxing match. So what he did, he said, I'm going to do this boxing match. He's never boxed before. I wouldn't have said he's a fighter or anything like that. He said, I'm going to train for 8 weeks and I'm going to do it.
Wow.
That's what he said. And he's not, he's in fairly good condition, all right, but not a trained fighter in any possible way. He did 8 weeks and then match up, and then he fought this match. And he fought it. He said the best experience of his life was winning that match. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it does.
And, just that adrenaline in that.
That adrenaline.
Yeah.
So I want that. He said, I want that feeling again.
Yeah.
I want that again. And if you think about it, that's why so many athletes can't finish at the right time.
Well, I was going to ask you, where do you find that afterwards? How do you go looking for that? Or how do you replace it? Because nothing's quite the same.
No. It isn't. And, you go into the coaching side of it and you go, right, I'm going to go there, and, and you're there, but it's never quite the same. You get an Olympic champion. Never quite the same, but it's just not that same feeling as doing it yourself.
The brutality, though, of a sport, like judo, where you have that one, you've got the world title and the Olympic title, and everyone, and only, and there's hundreds of athletes. You go to these training camps, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of athletes who are all incredible at judo. Yeah. And in one Olympic Games, 14 of them will get a gold. Yeah. And then obviously there's the team event as well. But that, and all of them are reaching for it, and then only one of them's going to get it. So how do you, the response to that, the disappointment of not getting it, and
the acceptance.
Yeah, how to find that acceptance, but if you go into it with acceptance, you might not get it.
Yeah, no, and I think that, that's why the disappointment, look what Abe Uta.
Uta.
The disappointment there was unbelievably because of expectation. Yeah. Outside and herself. All right, she probably was clearest favourite that you could get in any weight category, without a doubt, right?
Yeah, no,
and she's
one
come back and she's still top favourite. You know what I mean? And
she was even a talking point in the other weight categories. Like, they'd seen it happen, they were just like, and then everyone was like, "Oh my goodness!" Shock. Like, Abe Uta lost.
Yeah,
it was
like,
such a
what
shock.
is going to happen this week?
Just to be clear, for those who don't know, this is Abe Uta of Japan, 52 kilograms. Yeah. She at the Paris Olympics, she was the hot favourite, and in the second round, she went up against someone who was the world number one, but people weren't necessarily expecting Kaldiarova of Uzbekistan, and then Kaldiarova just shocked her. Yeah. An unbelievable technique.
And really shocked her.
Yeah, she really shocked her. And I think Kaldiarova, we haven't seen her since. Yeah. Is she thinking of coming back?
She's a mum now.
And she's training, I've heard.
Yeah.
But she will be reluctant, to step back in there because, obviously there's a very, very focused Abe Uta,
And every other time that Kaldiarova and Abe have met, Abe's won convincingly.
Yeah.
It was a good time to step away.
Yeah. That's the thing. Do you end it on the high? You get the Olympic gold, but it's kind of early-ish in your career. You could do it again.
I remember
but perhaps because she's got so much going on now. She's set up foundations, she's started a family. There are lots of other things in her life.
Yeah. And a family.
Yeah. To be there
for
her.
I was talking about,
but if there was nothing else after, she'd be like...
Yeah. Do you end it at that point?
Well, I saw it with Udo Qualmos, lost the World Championships one time to an unseeded Yugoslav fighter in the final who was never expected to win a gold medal or beat Udo. Retired on the spot.
Really?
Yeah, stopped.
How old is he? Roughly?
Not old, I don't think. I think if you look back, then I think you'll find that he was probably in his 20s and thought, I'm not going to top that.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
interesting, isn't it?
I think that you're right. There is, there are the ones that know they can do it again, and so they stay on for that other hit.
Okay, what about an example, say like Volum Lipitiliani? Because he's such a character and personality in the sport, it's not even so much him still getting the results, but still being on the tour and part of...
Visible.
Yeah, it's almost like being part of the judo family, but being part of the community and not wanting to step away from it in that sense, because he wasn't necessarily getting his best results towards the end, but he was still there.
And great, isn't he? And he's recognised as being a great. All the athletes will tell you that he was a great.
Yeah.
And the thing is, he won the Masters, I think, 6 times, and he won every other event except he didn't win a world or Olympic gold medal.
Lots of silvers, lots
you know
of
what
golds.
I mean? And he was devastated about that.
It's funny, isn't it? The difference of like what makes someone a great, because there's certainly an element of results and golds make people a great, but there are definitely athletes who've never been to the Olympics. Marianne, we've spoken about them already. So many great athletes who never went to the Olympics, so many great athletes who never quite got to that top spot, but they'll be remembered.
Yes.
They'll be remembered.
Oh, Fuji. And obviously Kashimazaki as well, that we were talking about. These are greats. These are amazing people. And I think you're right. It's not just about the medals. I've seen people that have become Olympic champions, and...
Surprisingly, perhaps.
The Olympic Games is a different one, isn't it? So you look at Tokyo Olympic Games, when we're talking about expectation, the Olympic Games was behind closed doors.
Yeah, no crowd.
So the people that react to crowd influence.
Yeah.
You know, some of them performed well behind closed doors, and some of them didn't perform so well.
Yeah. We actually, I think it's like one of the most amount of Japanese gold medals in any Olympic Games ever. So the Japanese may be quite happy with that crowd.
Yeah.
Quite happy with the quiet.
Yeah.
But then, you know, look at Teddy Riner, you know, probably did different preparation going into that Olympic Games.
Because he's a performer.
And then he comes into Paris. And you know, he has the best performance of his life.
Yeah, he's had 3 Olympic finals. The other 2 he won on Shidos. That one he did not win on Shidos.
No.
He won, you know, with such an enormous.
I'm glad you said, like, do I not entertain?
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? It was like, watch me now.
Yeah.
There wasn't an Olympic final that he wasn't going to score a nippon with, you know, and I'm talking about teams and, you know, whatever.
Yeah, Saito in the team final.
Twice.
Is just that.
No, it was unreal. And, you know, he's got to be a prime example of win-win-win. You know, when I saw his interview with you and he was talking about the psychological talks that he was having with his coaches. His coaches were saying, it's only about you. It's only about you. This is about you, you know. And because the thing is, he's a family man as well, remember? So, you know, for him to refocus onto that, amazing.
There's something about that, though, that always interests me because, I mean, I remember with Kayla Harrison, it really struck me how she had this unbelievable mindset. You know, every night before she went to bed, she would imagine stepping on the top of the podium. Every night she would imagine defeating all her opponents. And I remember hearing that, getting super inspired and being like, manifestation, visualization, this is so important. And then it struck me later that maybe Aguiar was doing that. Maybe Chimea was also doing that. Like, if it's like all of the athletes are visualizing to an extent. So what is the difference? What made Kayla's visualizations come true versus Aguiar's, who ended up with bronze? What tips the balance? Because surely, I don't know. I've not spoken to Chimea about her visualization. Maybe she doesn't do it, but surely so many athletes are doing that. What do you think is the difference?
I think it's down to individual approach, you know, and I think that the more I look at athletes that perform, the more directed you can make them. All right. So if you can keep it on the straight and narrow, I think it's a really important thing that they haven't got outside influences. All right. So if you've got family, if you've got kids and you know, like, so if you can take them away from that, it's got to be a sacrifice.
Yeah.
It has to be a sacrifice because if you've got that, it definitely affects performance. Definitely affects that final bit. And like you said, you know, physically you can be in great shape and it just goes away from you.
So then the ones who have the family and win, they're just so much better that even with the family, they're still on top? Or?
I'd be interested, you know, to find out how Teddy and his coaches got it right.
Yeah.
You know, they absolutely
they've got the formula. We need to just write to them.
No, they nailed it. You know, they nailed that. I didn't think they nailed it the Olympics before.
Yeah.
Because I thought that he should have done the qualifying. And, you know, I'm a really big believer that going into an Olympic Games in the top 8 is an imperative. All right. Because if you drop outside the top 8, you could drop anywhere.
Abayuta. Perfect example.
It happened to her. It happened to him. He dropped up near Taseyev, was it? Or
no, Taseyev
the other one.
Saito?
No, it was the other.
Tokyo.
Sorry, Tokyo. My bad. Yeah, Bashev. Yeah,
Bashev.
Yeah.
All right. And he dropped near him. And it was the wrong one for him because shorter fighters, he doesn't like fighting so much.
It's funny that Bashev spoke about this hand grip as well. He was like, if he's got that on, forget about it.
Yeah.
But you look at the people that Renier lost to in that period. It was Kagiura at the Paris Grand Slam. It was Bashev at the Tokyo Olympics. And they're both kind of, for plus 100s, small guys.
Yeah, and also that big right arm there doesn't do much. It's not as good as it's here when it's down there, you know, and it's you know, it's a different mechanic.
Yeah, and the speed, he couldn't quite keep up with
but
their
it just
speed.
doesn't like them dropping underneath.
But in Paris, he had the
nailed
speed.
It. It's
crazy.
No, he nailed it, you know, and did his homework, nailed it, absolutely nailed it, you know. And so I think that if we're looking for, you know, that magic formula, I wish I had it.
Yeah,
because I'd be
a lot of money if you had
a lot of money, a lot of money.
So with those big champions who leave leave those legacies though. For me, with you, Neil, when I grew up with, the first thing I knew about you when I was a little toddler watching judo for the first time, you were a commentator. I knew you as a commentator before I knew you as an athlete. And it was only afterwards that I learned that, the reason this guy's as a commentator is because he was world champion, because he was 2-time Olympic silver medalist. And I think you've said it before, that you said earlier, the young ones hear the voice and they go, I recognize that voice.
But I find it even stranger as well, because I think the first time I knew of you, I'd met you, was because my mum had taken me to a training session somewhere and you happened to be on the mat, and that's how I met you. And I was like, well, that's just Neil.
Yeah. And so do you
it's such a weird...
The generations to come with judo will, in some senses, you've made more of an impact on the world of judo after retiring, and what you've done after retiring with your coaching, with your analysis, with your commentating, than you perhaps. There are world champions in 1981 who people don't know like the name like they know Neil Adams. How do you reconcile that with, like, because obviously your competitive career had a big impact, but that your career after competing has had such an enormous impact?
The longevity of it.
I am so grateful, so our relationship, fighting films, and, it's been going a long time, I think the first thing I ever voiced over was my own world championship tape. Yeah. Right. And I kind of voiced it over.
That is amazing, by the way.
Kind of voiced it over.
It's one of my favorite things to go. I don't know if we can pull up the 1981. I love that because you're fresh. You're fresh into media. You do a great job, but it's different to the Neil.
Totally different. The voice is different, and a couple of octaves higher, and you know what I mean. And
the excitement.
Nikki says it's the David Beckham of old. Even David now, he's got a lower tone to his voice, and as we get older, I think that's happened. But I'm so grateful for what it's given me, and actually, so the coaching was important to me, and the coach education, we're still very heavily involved in the coach education and how to process and how to coach people to coach, and the principles, the fundamental principles. But for me to be able to put it across as well and to present it now as I do with the commentary, I am so grateful because I have a platform that, I can go on to, and with all the top events, and I get a lot of the top athletes, the Georgians will come up to me and say, I like you commentated my world championship final and this, that, and the other, and for me to be part of their big moment is great. It's amazing.
Every time they watch it back, they listen to you and you're like, that's the sound of it. That's the sound of their final.
Yeah, and I'm in their house, which is great, and I am really glad of that.
This is from the 1981 production called Ippon, I think, and you filmed this with
Am I voicing this over?
Uncle Simon Hicks.
Yes.
Let's have a quick look at some of the footage, and what do you remember for this? Look how 80s this is. It's
well, I can't wait for the voice.
It's so epic. I wonder if we'll get the voice through. I don't, but look at that. You're doing the dumbbell.
I was just doing this yesterday as well.
Dumbbell.
To tell you what, now you can commentate it
Neil Adams
as you would now.
Ippon. So
it's like you say, do it as I would now. It's just good looking back. This was back in 1982, I think, or 83 that we did the voice.
This camera quality is fantastic. We're just watching, obviously, the 1981 judo here.
Yeah.
I wish that I'd had an equivalent to take, me through the process. And
you felt you were kind of having to just find your own way without a sort of sensei. In fact,
these are kind of almost Super 8s, aren't they? You know what I mean? They're like film. The quality is not great, and I wish I'd had the quality of film that we have and the production.
Here we go. Here you are, Neil. Look at that.
Blonde highlights.
Blonde.
Yeah.
For those listening, we're watching Neil being interviewed in front of the at that time, the thing that would allow you to watch footage back. It wasn't so easy to watch footage back.
No, it wasn't. And I think that this was the very beginning of how it kind of all started. And it was the first time that we could look at something back, have a look at the technicalities of it. The technical, tactical parts of how it kind of unfolded.
So that's interesting. I'd not really considered before. This was in my head had thought it had gone competitive career into commentary, but this is in between your 2 Olympic silvers.
Yeah, it was in between, and it kind of. I didn't know that this wasn't commentary, or didn't know the difference between narration and so this was more narration without a doubt, and just talking our way through it. So it was nothing to do with commentary.
Yeah.
Look at that. I would have given him a Shido for that. Definitely. Just grabbed the legs there. Yeah.
Yeah. This is you. I think this right now is before we've got to the Worlds. This is you doing technical analysis of your own British Open.
Yeah, it's British Open, and it's how I qualified to go through to the World Championships, and I had a really tough match against Denzine, who was coming up at the time in the final, and just small score managed to win it.
How important do you think is media literacy for nowadays athletes in terms of looking for when?
Look at the amazing way it's changed everything now. Everybody's got a great record of what they've done. Everybody can look up, their opposition and see, what they're doing and when they're doing it, how they do it.
Is it too much though?
Maybe it is.
Because having to go behind closed doors and really work in secret on maybe new techniques, you wouldn't have had that as much back then. Or what was the training camps like? Or do you know what? You didn't have so much interaction.
No, we didn't have so much. It meant that we had to do our research a little bit better, So I knew exactly what Ezio did, and I knew what, some of the top fighters that I fought in the world did. Did I have it on hand immediately? No, I didn't. Did I have me, because obviously, I looked through an event, so if they catch I know the referees use my commentary to see where sometimes, because they know I might get 1 or 2 things wrong, but I get a lot of things right. And I assess their kind of performances as well. And I think that because of that, they'll see what I say, and so I think that it's given us a lot of advantages. And also, like I say, from a PR point of view, it's made us one of the most popular and competitive sports in the world. Yeah. As far as countries concerned.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Such a high. Yeah. Thank you, Neil. Thank you so much for joining us. We of course don't miss out on Game of Thrones,
which you can get on Amazon and of course neiladams.com. Yes, and we just want to obviously say thank you to all the listeners.
Thank you very much
to our guests once again.
Yes,
please go and hit the 5-star on particularly Apple Podcasts. Just hit that 5 stars. We can get a lot of those in a row. It will help with the old algorithm.
Yeah.
And just give us
follow us across
review.
all of them.
Yes, follow across all of them. Neil, thank you so much for coming and
Absolute
joining
pleasure.
us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
And we'll see you soon.
Yeah, will.